Okay, so we are going to talk about college admissions. All right, so we're going to start with an overview of college admissions. So the first slide is some tips and recommendations. We share these at most of our presentations throughout the year on college. And usually we have this at the end, but we wanted you to have it now so that when we start the applications later on, you already have this in mind. So you want to use a separate email from your personal and school accounts just for college scholarships and things like that. So you cannot use your school account, right? That you'll never get those emails from wherever you sign up. And you don't want to use an account that gets a lot of junk and spam mail. So if you already have a personal account that you've had for a long time, maybe you use it with friends and family, but maybe you also sign up for a lot of like email lists and stuff and you get a lot of junk. You don't want your college mail getting lost. So create a separate Google account that you're going to use for college. You can use for job applications and things like that. And then we say Google account because then you have a Google Drive associated with it where you can save all of your personal statement drafts and other college stuff. Make sense? Okay. We do have a tracking sheet as well. So again, we will be sharing this presentation with you so you don't have to like worry about the links. You'll have access to them. So this is a great place to keep track of all of your usernames, maybe which email you used for it. So that's what the first tab is. On the second tab, you can list colleges that you're thinking about. You can change the headings of the columns based on like what's important to you. So like maybe location's important. I like column E, what I like about the school. So that's for you to remember and remind yourself later on why you put that on your list. We have here reach, target, and likely. That's based on your profile, your GPA, if you've taken the SAT and ACT based on your scores, based on how involved you are in school, based on where you're from and your community. So based on you and your academic and your application profile, is that school a reach school for you? Is it a target school? Is most of their applicants in your same range? Or are their average GPAs lower than yours and it's a likely school? So you'll see as we get into talking about the different schools, you'll see that CSUs, some of them are going to be a likely school for everybody. Some schools are going to be a reach school for everybody. What do you think might be a reach school for everybody? Stanford, right? Harvard, right? No matter what your grades are and how well you do at school and how involved you are, those are going to be a reach school for everybody because everyone applying has good grades and is involved in school to Harvard and Stanford, right? Target is going to vary, right, based on you and your grades. For some students, it might be St. Mary's College of California is a target school. For some students, maybe San Jose State is a target school, but for others, those might be reach schools. So it's going to vary some of the schools. Any questions? Okay, so first we're going to talk about CSUs. Anyone know how many there are? Not 26, but close. 26. No. You guys keep going up. It's not up. Huh? 25? 23. There are 23. So they range in size and competitiveness. So for example, anyone know what the smallest CSU is? Huh? Anyone heard of Cal Maritime? So that is the smallest one. It's in Vallejo. It's less than 1,000 students. They do oceanography. They do business, but with relation to like water stuff. They do Coast Guard stuff. They do engineering all around the water. The bigger ones are around 30,000 people. Northridge, San Francisco, even San Diego. Okay, so some of these are really big. So you have to decide, do you want to go to a really big school or maybe like a medium-sized school or a small school? So like Channel Islands and Monterey Bay are like around 7,000. So that's a nice small school. Then like East Bay's in the middle with like 12, 14,000, something like that. And then there's those 30,000 ones. You need a 2.5 A through G GPA. So that means all of your A through G classes starting after ninth grade, you have an A through G GPA. That has to be at least a 2.5 for the CSUs. Is a 2.5 going to get you into all the CSUs? No. It's going to get you into the ones that are local, because each school has a local area. So San Francisco and East Bay are local for us. 2.5 will also get you into non-impacted schools, so schools that are not over full. Bakersfield, Stanislaus, sometimes Monterey Bay, and a few others. Other than that, you need higher GPAs, and it's going to vary school to school. San Diego State, the Cal Polys, they're going to have higher GPA requirements, especially for impacted majors. San Jose State, it's going to depend on the major. Any questions about that? For the application, you can't fill it out yet. It opens October 1st, and you can fill it out and submit it October 1st to November 30th. You'll need your unofficial transcript so that you can fill out the academic history part. You can just have it open in Aries while you have the application open. You can have a printout. If you have one, your social security number, so that way they can match your application to your financial aid app. And, if you don't qualify for a fee waiver, you'll need to pay at the end. The deadlines are either November 30th or December 15th, depending on the campus. And there's a couple that have like January deadlines, like East Bay. So the other public school in California are the UCs, and a lot of you are interested in those. Oh, I was going to ask how many, but you probably just saw that. How many UCs? Huh? 9. There's 9 undergraduate campuses. There's a 10th campus, UCSF. It's only graduate school. So the 9 campuses require a minimum 3.0 for that A through G GPA. Is a 3.0 going to get you into all the UCs? No. Probably not. They're going to be looking at a lot of factors, though. They don't just look at your GPA. They also look at personal factors, your community you're coming from. What did your school offer? Did you challenge yourself with honors and AP classes relative to what your school offered? Do you have any talent, skills? How involved were you? Your extracurriculars, and what you write about yourself in your PIQ. So we'll do a deep dive later for those who want to stay and work on the UC app. And so that application is open now you can start working on it. You can submit it October 1st to November 30th. That is a hard deadline. You cannot miss it. We're having you start early so that you don't have to be doing it during Thanksgiving break. You should be done well before then. And we'll go through it later, but like I said, you're gonna list your activities, your extracurriculars, you're gonna have PIQs, all that good stuff. So the question was, do they consider it more the earlier you submit it? No. Equal chance whenever you submit it, whether you submit it October 1st or November 30th. However, November 28th, November 29th, November 30th. What do you think? A lot of people are on there submitting it. It crashes, it cycles. You may not, you don't want to have any technology issues. So don't wait till the last couple of days.
So it's not rolling admission?
It is not rolling admission for the UCs, no. Other questions?
Okay. Is it likely that somebody with like a 3.87, that's including progression, would get into like UCLA or UCSD?
So they take a lot of factors into consideration, but the average GPA is higher than that. That being said, that doesn't mean people don't get in with GPAs of 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 to those schools. But it really depends on what else is in your application and what they're looking for that year. That's why some of those UCs are reach schools for everybody. UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego. Those are reach schools for everyone because every year we don't know who's getting in and who's not. So we really encourage you to have a variety of schools to apply to. So you don't need to apply to all the UCs, but we don't want you to only apply to those three, right? Those are the three that are really the most competitive. And then we also want you to think about having at least one CSU and maybe a private or out of state.
Also, if we go into if we apply to the UC, would it be one application for the whole UC system, or would we have to do an application for each campus?
It's one for all, and we'll talk about that later. Yeah.
Do colleges require SATs?
We're getting to that. The question was about SATs, but we will get to that in a little bit. So as a reminder, these are the A through Gs for the CSU and UC applications. So you all should know this. We go over it with you every year that you're in high school. So for the CSUs, the minimum is typically fine, except for maybe the Cal Polys. But for the UCs, they want to see the recommended. Now, do you have to meet the recommended number in every single category? No. But you need to be doing above and beyond the minimums in at least a few of the areas. So a lot of people are like, oh, they recommend 2 VAPAs, I only have 1. That's okay. You have 4 sciences, right? So it's like a balance act. Questions about the A through Gs? All right. So in addition to public schools in California, there are public schools that are available to you outside of California. So for example, University of Oregon, Michigan State, etc. They have a variety of admission criteria, so we can't just list it out for you like we do for the other schools. You have to look up each one separately. They do have an out-of-state tuition because they're going to charge less for people in state, just like the UCs and CSUs are less for you versus someone coming from out of state. However, a lot of the schools on the West Coast, Colorado, Arizona, Washington, even Hawaii, have something called WUI, the Western Undergraduate Exchange, that will bring that tuition down closer to the in-state tuition. And so sometimes students attend a school out of state for similar price to a UC. They use either the Common App or the Coalition app. Some of them may have their own application as well. Then there's private colleges and universities. So we mentioned some of them are really hard to get into, like Stanford and Harvard, right? But there's a wide variety of private schools out there. Some of them are really small. Holy Names University up the hill in Oakland, it's only about 1,000 students. And they have a much lower average GPA than those competitive schools. So it's a really good school if you want to stay local. St. Mary's College of California, also a good school if you want to stay local. But you need to want a small school environment for those two. They're small. There's less people than we have at Castro Valley High. Some of them are really big. USC, NYU. I saw people who want to go to one of those schools. Those are really big private schools. So even though they're a private school, they're still big, just like San Francisco State is. However, they still have smaller class sizes than the public schools. So a lot of students choose to go to private school because of the small class size. And you get a lot more attention from the instructors, more opportunities maybe for internships, research, things like that. The private schools really want to make sure that you get a job or get into grad school when you leave, because it looks good for them if they can report how many people are in working or grad school. So that's why a lot of students choose that. Now, yes, it does cost more than public school, but depending on your situation and which private schools you're applying to, there's a lot of financial aid and scholarships available. St. Mary's has a lot of good scholarships if you have a 3.5. So, there's a lot of good opportunities out there. The University of Redlands offers good scholarships. So there's opportunities. Some private schools are called liberal arts colleges, so you'll see that from time to time. Those are going to be small schools. So, for example, St. Mary's College is a liberal arts college. They really focus on undergraduate education, so they have less graduate students on campus. They also focus on a well-rounded education. So rather than, if you want to study engineering, if you go to liberal arts college, you're still going to get a lot of general eds, more so than at a university. At another university, if you're studying engineering, you typically have less general eds because you have so much math and engineering and science. Question. Okay, so HBCUs are another college option. Historically Black colleges and universities. They're mostly in the South and in the East Coast of our country. The admission requirements vary. So Howard University is a competitive school. Some of the other ones are not as competitive and are easier to get into. They typically use either the Common Black College app, where you can apply to many schools for just one $35 fee, or the Common app. So Howard University, for example, is on the regular Common app. And you have to pay for application fees separately. There's the Black College Expo in Oakland every February with on-the-spot admissions for some of these schools. Howard is not one of them. So for applying to private and out-of-state colleges, there's different deadlines. So for early decision and early action, those deadlines are in November. Early decision is binding. You can only select that for one school. It means that if you get in, you're going there. Some of the schools have in their early decision agreement that if you don't get enough financial aid, you can back out, but they don't all have that phrase, so you need to check. Early action is not binding. So early action, you get to apply early and be done, and you get to find out early. Some schools, you have a better chance of getting in if you apply early action than if you apply later. So for example, Santa Clara University, down in Santa Clara near San Jose, really good engineering program and some others. They admitted the majority of their students through early action last year. So if Santa Clara University is on your list, I highly recommend considering applying early action. It does mean you have to get it done early, but that's good. Then you have it done. You can do early action with more than one school, and you'll find out early if you got in or not. Then there's a regular decision and a priority deadline. Some schools will have a priority deadline of like December, January, February, and then you can still apply after the priority deadline. However, you won't be eligible for some of their scholarships. So if a school lists a priority deadline, you want to meet that priority deadline. All right, SAT, ACT, there were questions about this. They are not looked at for UC-CSU admission. So if you report your scores to UC or CSU, they are not going to look at it. In fact, it won't show up for the person who's actually reading the application. If you report your scores, they'll use it after for math and English placement. That's it. However, for private and out-of-state schools, many of them are test optional, meaning it's your choice if you want to submit your scores or not. And that gets tricky because then you're like, do I submit it? Do I not submit it? If it's going to help your application, you submit your scores. If it's not going to help your application, you don't submit your scores. And then you're like, well, what score do I need? Well, it depends on the person and the rest of your application. So then you come talk to us. There are some schools that are back to requiring the scores after the pandemic, including but not limited to MIT, Georgia Tech, and Georgetown. So if those are on your list, you do need to take the SAT or ACT. So I know yesterday we had some folks interested in MIT. Questions? So if you do plan to take the SAT or ACT, these are the dates for the fall and the websites to register. Again, we're going to email this presentation, so don't worry about writing it down or whatever. All right, so any questions? No. Okay, great. So we're going to move on to our next section of the presentation. We're going to talk about your values and interests. Why are we talking about this? Because on your applications, you need to list your activities. So these are, your interests, right? Your hobbies, what you do, what you participate in. You also need to share information about yourself through the PIQs or personal statement, and you might talk about your values and interests. You also, oh yeah, that's what we said. Okay. Also, as you are deciding which specific schools to apply to, these can be helpful in finding schools that match your personal values and interests. If you want to go to a school that is environmentally minded, diverse, right? You want to decide what kind of things do I want in a school? Do I want one that's very inclusive? Do I want one that's small? Do I want one where community and involvement is important to the people at the school? Do I want one where they think about politics or not, right? Like there's a lot of different things. So where do our values come from? They come from the people around us, right? From our experiences growing up, friends, family. What are some groups that you're a part of that have influenced your values? So maybe your family, maybe your sports team, maybe your church group, maybe an ethnic group that you're part of. So there's a lot of different groups that you belong to that may have influenced your values and what you're looking for in a college and what you can contribute to a college. There might be specific people. So right now I want you to think, who are some people in my life that have influenced my values? What I want you to do is open up your name cards and write down 3 values related to college and education that you have learned from the people in your life.